calling all misfits, rebels, leaders, and teachers, welcome to the one place where the only way to fit in is by standing out, where big goals are met with even bigger action, and where we talk through then tackle all things entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Kelsey Knudsen, and this is the Get Shit Done podcast. Welcome to the Revolution. You know that scene in Mean Girls where she's like, sweatpants are all that fit me right now? Well, there's a little truth to that. So you're joining me today for a casual dressed episode for Get Shit Done. However, we're not having a casual conversation. We have a very tactical conversation today. I'm specifically talking to my leaders out there, my people who have people who work for them, whether it's one W-2 or a whole team of them. Pull up a chair, my friend. We are going to get into the weeds today, and I think you're going to be better for it. This is based actually on a conversation I was recently having with one of my remaster current people. And it's pretty interesting because I talk so much about processes and systems and having clear ways to take action and ensure that people know what's expected of them. But there's something else to add to the mix. Just because you have a process doesn't mean your team is using it, and it doesn't mean they're using it to its full ability. So I want to dive into that. Today's topic is just because you have systems alone, it doesn't mean it's actually fixing your problems in the business. And if you have team members who are struggling or underperforming, or maybe just not quite at the level of other people within your team, it could be because they don't know how to use these processes and systems. But it could also be that these are the wrong processes and systems. And today we're going to dissect the difference between the two and give you some actionable steps you can go implement into your team. Because I hate to break it to you, but just because you create a process for something one time does not mean your team is just going to take it and run with it and implement and execute to perfection. I need to set the tone a little before we get tactical. Not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. It's a very small percentage of people. I think the last time I looked, I want to say it was like 6% of the US. It could be 9. It's under 10 though. I do know that. Under 10% of the US population are entrepreneurs. On the other side of the coin, not everyone's cut out to work for small businesses. To be able to be a great employee for a small business, you have to be agile, you have to be creative, you have to be self-motivated, self-starting. There's so many great benefits of working for a small business owner. But there's also different levels of expectations and resources and other things too. And I think we forget that sometimes. And that is why as you're growing a business and a team of people, it can be really frustrating to identify what is that thing between someone who's a rock star employee and someone who's kind of struggling. So today I'm speaking to my leaders, and today specifically, I want to talk about those people who are maybe struggling or just not quite at that level. If you find yourself saying things like, I would just do it so much better, or I could do it so much faster, or I don't understand why they XYZ, or I got this and they just struggle so long, or I keep telling them I'm available and they don't ask me questions. You have to remember, they don't always possess the same skill set you do. Most of the times they don't. Most of the times they're not wired the same way you are. On top of that, this is your baby. This is not their baby. And just because you took a lot of time to build some systems doesn't mean the handoff is fully done. So let's talk about it. 3 simple things I want you to keep in mind as you're thinking about how to utilize systems and provide a clean handoff to your team is not only adopting these systems, but really running with it and using it to take the business to the next level. Because at the end of the day, the goal of hiring people and implementing systems for these people to use is improved efficiency, so that you as the business owner can start to shift and focus more on the bigger picture, the planning, the strategy, the auditing, purchasing decisions, hiring decisions, big picture initiatives now are on your plate, on top of the leadership and all the other day-to-day stuff. But we have to create room and space on that plate, and that happens with a really clean handoff of responsibilities. And processes and systems support that, but we need to make sure they understand what to do with all of those tools that you have built. So 3 things to do to help make that process better. Number 1 is this: involve your team early. Let's just, for kicks and giggles, let's just pick the example of client onboarding. I think a lot of us can picture that. Whether you are a service provider and people come in and that goal between when they find you on Instagram and then book the appointment and come in for the appointment. It's pretty short. Maybe they come in for a brow wax. Or if you are luxury interior design and you're probably in kind of the dating phase, maybe they apply, maybe you follow up with some questions, maybe they book a call, and from there you start working together. Either way, you're still onboarding. The cycle might be shorter, but the function is still there. So we're going to use the example of onboarding for today's conversation. If you have team members, have them help you map out an ideal onboarding process. Of course, there's going to be variables. Of course, you can automate emails and still write them in the tone of your brand and your business to make it feel super personal, but it can be automated. But the key is involve your team early, because the more buy-in they have in how the system is built, then they're going to have more pride in it. And also, they're wired differently than you. Most of the time, the processes and systems that my CEOs need within their team, if done right, majority of the time, the CEO is rarely involved in the actual function of it. Maybe the super high level, maybe approving some things, but they're not in the day-to-day. They're not the one using it the most. Therefore, there's an argument to be made that it should be set up on a platform or in a way that the person who's owning that project is most well-versed in that process and that platform that they're utilizing. So by involving the team, you get that feedback and you make sure you're building it right from the jump. I think it's also important to help in the creation of that, like really brainstorming. Again, our example being onboarding. When do we want them to get the message? Is it an email or is it a text? Or is it a phone call? Is it a DM? Like really bringing together all the minds to figure out the best way you want to set this up. Then it allows more buy-in from the rest of the team. And they may come up with ideas that you may not even think of, because truthfully, you should not be in the weeds in managing the onboarding process. If you're the CEO and you have team members, you should not be owning that and only that. This should be, again, providing a clean handoff. So we need to make sure that we're handing it off like a baby, like it's secure, it's taken care of, it's going to be nurtured. A quick tip is this: asking your team members, because again, I think what happens a lot is people either they build the process, they being the CEO builds the process, or they say, hey, so-and-so, Kelsey on my team, you're my virtual assistant. You need to build an onboarding process. But if that one person builds it and there's other team members that have to use it, they're going to build it the way they think and how they are best inspired, or also like how their brain works visually. It's going to be set up that way. That might not apply to everyone else who needs to use that process. And again, if you're the CEO and you don't need to use the process, get out of the weeds. Facilitate the conversation, make sure the follow through is there, but get out of the weeds. Number 2 tip on how to make these processes more effective in the handoff is to train and clarify. This is the part people get wrong because they don't do it. When you are training and clarifying, we're going to create an onboarding process to really amplify or increase the user experience. We want it to be like top notch. We also want it to be automated, make sure those small things don't fall through the cracks, and also set up in a way that would be easy to teach to the next person. Okay, great. But if you're not taking the time to train and clarify, it's those two things, then you are really, really going to be bummed out when 6 months from now you open up Asana or Trello or whatever platform you're using and it's 4 months old and a bunch of things are still in your inbox that could be tasks on that platform. You're gonna be super frustrated. The train and clarify piece, in my opinion, is the biggest missing link, because oftentimes I talk to business owners and they don't have systems and processes that are documented. They exist up here. They go through the motions, but they don't have them documented. So they spend all this time mapping out the onboarding. Maybe they even have a team huddle and they do it together. And they feel like, oh, we got our system. Now we're done. No, because a big indication that the handoff has been successful is that the team members who are utilizing it understand. And I think that's the missing link. And that comes with the training and clarification. And in my opinion, the best way to ensure they understand is this: you map out the process, you pick out what platform is going to house it, and again, lean heavily on the person who will be using it the most. You collaboratively put it in there. You talk through it together. Okay, this due date means the day it's due versus this due date means the day that they start. You know, what does due mean? I think that can even be discussed. Like if I said due date for me and one for you, you may interpret that as different than mine is. And so we need to get specific. upload podcast episode could mean different things. How specific do we want these tasks to be is to make sure it's really clear. And just because you think you as the CEO are clear doesn't mean your team members think you're clear. And here's how you know if they don't get it. Once you set up the system and you do it collaboratively, you need to put someone through it, whether it's a real client or have someone test it all the way through. And then here's the part no one wants to hear. You have your team member teach it back to you. You sit there and you say, okay, pretend I'm new. I started today. You walk me through how to use this platform and then shut up and listen to them, because how they teach it back to you, that's their level of understanding. And if they're getting things wrong and communicating it to you, what do you think they're doing when they're alone and they're struggling and they're overwhelmed and they're behind schedule and they're frantic? Or what are they doing when they have Asana pulled up? And it's a project management tool. It's not the only one, but it's the one we use. So that's the example I'm using. What if they have Asana pulled up, but they're still handwriting notes here and putting a Google Doc here and sending an email here and then writing a calendar to do here, when all of that could be done on this one platform and they're not using the platform? We need to know why. So that's where that train and clarify combination comes into play. It's not enough for them to be trained on it one time. We need to know their usage. We need to know if they aren't using it, why? Do they know it exists, first of all? Okay, if they know it exists because they helped build it, then asking that question, why don't you use this? Oh, the view just doesn't really work with my brain. Well, did you know you can change the view? You can change it to calendar view or task list or board. You can change the way you look at it, and we can all have our own custom view of the same project. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, let me show you how to do it. Okay, I'm new here. Show me how to change the project view so I can make sure you understand how to do this for yourself. That training piece takes longer than you think. It's not enough to just build a process. You need to make sure they understand. And that also, think of this, means you need to carve out the time on that plate. If you have a plate and you're the CEO, you need to carve out time and energy and process to ensure your team members are getting it. Because if you build it and you hope they just figure it out and they don't, that's on you for not following up. And it's going to lead to wasted time and money and frustration. But once you have the system built and the platform exists and they're using it-ish, the last piece of the puzzle, which is tip number 3, is to have feedback loops. So that's where you are using the platform day to day consistently. And maybe it's once a quarter, you sit down as a team and you say, hey, we're using Asana. This is how we're doing it. What do we think? What could be better? What would we want to change? What could we simplify? What could we add to the mix that we're still doing manually elsewhere? Because there will probably always be things that you manually are doing that you could add to the mix. And that feedback loop, that follow-up piece is so crucial, but we forget to do it. We think, gosh, okay, I don't have systems. Everything is chaos. And then all of a sudden now I have systems and I feel so clear and focused. Oh my gosh, and now my team knows what's expected of them and we're all holding each other accountable and the ball's moving forward. That last piece of let's pause and audit and make sure the system we built still fits, still is optimized. Now that we're using it consistently, how can we make it better? And that takes time and energy. I think the message here is that you as a leader need to shift where your time and energy is going and be okay with that. No one else can step in and fill that gap right now in your business. That has to be you. However, it's the best use of your time, because if your team is able to perform on all the smaller in the weed tasks and you focus on pouring into them and optimizing them, everyone's going to be happier. Your business will function more effectively, and that will lead to the long-term growth you are looking for. So a quick tip to ask yourself as you're doing that feedback loop, as you're having those check-ins and those audits on the platform, is have team members give their input. What is working for you? What is not working for you? And as the CEO, make changes that support the overall business. We love Asana. We use it for a lot of things. It has some capabilities where you can set up recurring things. For the podcast specifically, that's, I would say, the most in-depth process we have on there. We actually don't use the recurring feature because there's some nuance and variation between episodes. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me and Matt. Sometimes it's me and a hot seat guest, or me and a subject matter expert. But each of those variations have different processes, so it doesn't make sense to have this recurring thing set up. I share that example because I think as business owners, we aren't always the best at making decisions that align with the bigger picture. Every Monday, we publish a new podcast episode. On paper, that sounds great to automate that step. However, in the function of our business, that automation doesn't make sense for a number of reasons. I don't want to bore you with all of them, but in short, just because the tech can do it doesn't mean it's the solution for your business. And that's that nuance of how you audit yourself and the business and the processes as a team, because you may have one person who makes a suggestion over here, like, hey, we should really look into this feature. I think it would benefit us. Here's the reasons why. But bigger picture, it's actually going to add to more complication. Because the truth is this, processes should make life easier. They should hold people accountable. They should decrease the amount of balls being dropped. They should lead to more efficiency, but ultimately they should make the function of your business easier. And if it's not, I would argue it's the wrong process. Your team member's not going to tell you they don't like it most of the time. I think it depends on the type of leader you are. Most leaders are strong personalities. They're confident. They believe wholeheartedly in the work that they are doing, that they're a little intimidating. Your employees are probably intimidated. And you can think you're being crystal clear all day long, but if they're not acting like they get it, they don't get it. And it's on you to figure out why. So, in short, just because the process exists is not enough. Just because you communicate consistently and compassionately with your team is not enough. We need to make sure the handoffs are clean and clear. Have your team help you build the processes. Make sure you train them in how you want it done. Have them train you to make sure they understand. Maybe you have them train the next new hire and you videotape the training or you listen in on the conversation. Maybe if we're talking about the onboarding example, part of it includes a discovery call and you have a team member who's taking that on. Maybe you have them record that call, or maybe you listen in on that call to make sure they're following the steps appropriately. And if there's some place where that follow through is not happening, there's balls being dropped, or there's a reason that action step is not happening, figure it out. Figure out why that is and take action on it, because you need to. So thank you so much for listening. Here's the deal with this episode. If you have a team and you either don't have systems or truthfully, they could be better. Maybe you're delegating and then you take things back, and then you delegate and then you take things back, and it's kind of this tug of war with the functions of your business. First of all, I just want you to know you're not alone. This whole systems and process conversation and leadership is a constant evolution of business ownership. It's never, ever perfect. I still have conversations about processes and systems or mistakes or things that happen to this day. And my team is rock stars. Like I would totally refer the hell out of every single person I work with currently, without a doubt. But none of us are perfect. The feedback piece, the audit piece, we're constantly like, okay, this works, but here's how it could be better. And you as a business owner will not have the time and capacity to audit that and then make the necessary changes to support that observation unless you create it, honor it, and communicate it to your team. This is that next level of being proactive. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, something you really want to focus on for the year for 2025, and you have a team, definitely reach out. I am running my remaster program. It kicks off soon. You can visit my website at kelseymarieknudsen.com/remaster. It's part retreat, part mastermind, specifically for my multi-6 to 7-figure entrepreneur leaders. And we're going to be doing a lot of this stuff, a lot of systems, a lot of delegation, a lot of audits of how those handoffs are and how to make them even better and stronger. So you're not alone. You got this. Would love to chat more about Remaster and see if it's a fit for you and your business. Hey, thanks for being a part of the Get Shit Done revolution. My hope is this episode sparked a fire in you, equipped you with some practical next steps, or inspired you to take action towards your goals. If it did, please help spread the word by sharing this episode or leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in. Now it's time for me to hand over the keys and let you get shit done.